Welcome to another episode of Casual Cinephilia, where enthusiastic amateurs talk very passionately about movies. I'm Ian.
I'm Lorian, and today we are talking about Black Widow.
Yes, a movie that was supposed to come out a year ago, but because of, a little thing called a global pandemic, was delayed just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
And it
Yeah,
finally
supposed
released.
to come out a year ago, set in the cinematic universe, 3 or 4 years ago?
It's set in, I believe, late 2016, early 2017.
Yeah.
Spoilers for not only Marvel's Black Widow, but also the Marvel Cinematic Universe, just in case.
Yeah, all of it.
All of it.
And hell, I haven't read any comics on this, but maybe those too, if Ian's got any gems.
I got a couple. So this takes place...
any of the Black Widow comics.
I
don't want people to assume I'm totally ignorant on comics.
Yeah.
God forbid.
God forbid. But yeah, so this movie, takes place not too long after Civil War. And,
pretty much right after.
Right? So
it picks up pretty close.
Yeah, because they're hunting her down. They've already captured, Clint and Ant-Man and Falcon. So
right.
They're looking for her. And then it bookends with her getting the Quinjet that they use in Infinity War.
Right.
So it kind of is that intermediary piece, which I was thinking about it. Other than the post-credit scene, this movie would fit perfectly after Civil War, in that movie genre. So like in the Phase 3 era. So if you're wanting to do another rewatch of it, it wouldn't be that bad of an idea to just move this one a little bit further forward in the timeline to before Infinity War.
In fact, I'd say it was a good idea to do that because this is not an incredibly smooth read how they released it.
No.
I had to pull back into my memory to figure out what I was supposed to have known already. Because there's so many movies that came out after when this was set, it was okay, do I know this or not? What just happened? It's not incredibly clear because it was so delayed.
Yeah.
So I'd say definitely watch it right after Civil War, where it is set chronologically rather than when it was released.
Yeah,
which is my preference for movie binging anyway.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually lucked out. I went into this movie quite blind. I wasn't quite sure when this was going to take place, whether it's going to be during the cinematic universe, previously a Captain Marvel style or something. And so I didn't really know, but literally the night before on TV was Civil War. So I had watched Civil War the night before I watched this out of happenstance, And so
I wish I had.
It felt a lot smoother. I could see it being rough.
I haven't watched Civil War in years and years because I did not like Civil War. So it's been a really long time since I've seen that movie.
It's a shame because that's actually...
And there were some moments where it was rough for me to remember.
Yeah.
If you guys are hearing me interrupt Ian more than usual, it is because I am sick and we are recording remotely, so I do not give them my cooties.
Yeah,
no
cooties.
I'm not just trying to be rude. There is a delay for us.
No, yeah. And I'm going to try and do my best to accommodate that. So it's all good. Cooties are bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a shame that you don't like Civil War, because though it's not my favorite, it's probably one of the most pivotal movies in the MCU,
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking I need to rewatch the whole MCU. Anyway. It's been so long since I've done that.
You should. Rachel and I did that last year, and it just...
Yeah, I have a few friends who that was their quarantine project, was watching or rewatching the whole MCU.
Mm-hmm. And it reminded me how much I loved Marvel. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of complaints people give Marvel movies is that some of their movies are pretty cookie cutter, which
Right.
I can't disagree with. But
Sure.
there's just a special sauce that Kevin Feige puts into it that makes every movie, no matter how small it is, feel important to the larger story.
Yeah.
Like the Ant-Man movies have, which are like unquestionably the smallest style movies, no pun intended.
Sure.
You know, they're heist movies that affect a handful of people, but they turn out to come up with the idea that saves everything in Endgame. You know, so it's like
Right.
every little bit matters, and even the ones that don't necessarily feel like they are, like the Captain Marvels or whatnot, with the new things that are coming out with like WandaVision and the new stuff
Right.
coming up, it's like, oh shit, no, these things are going to have serious impact on the next phase of
Right.
Marvel, you know? And so I'm just going through, it's like, wow, this is an achievement.
Yeah.
You know? And I got that feel from this movie, from Black Widow.
I loved this movie.
Yes.
Like a lot.
So again, I went into this one blind. Like, I didn't do much research. I was concerned about, you know, why are they making a solo film for someone who is canonically dead? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's too little too late to finally give a female superhero a lead. You know, I know Captain Marvel has gotten one already, but, you know, like, for someone who's a staple of Marvel's, you know, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, like, why are we giving it to her now that she's dead? You know, like, and so I went into it like, what the heck are they going to do with this? And from beginning to end, this was a love letter to the character of Black Widow. And I fell in love with the character, and it made me so sad at the end that I'm not going to get a Scarlett Johansson Black Widow 2.
Right.
You know, like, I'm excited because there's most definitely going to be a Black Widow 2 starring Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova.
She was great.
I fell in love with her character. She was she was the heart, the backbone of this story. I loved her. But, like, I don't know, this movie, Black Widow has been such a side character in so many movies. Like, she's been pivotal, don't get me wrong, but, like, she never gets the spotlight she deserves, and she finally did, and it's a swan song because we're not going to get any more, and it makes me so sad because it was so good.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to call you out, but just stick it with me.
Okay.
Did you already know why Black Widow couldn't have children?
Yeah, in Avengers Age of Ultron, she describes it.
Good answer. Because there are some YouTube channels that I watch that do a lot of, like, quizzes. It's two men who do the channel, and usually they, like, know all the tiny little details, and they did a Black Widow quiz, and one of the questions was like, why can't Black Widow have children? And their answers were like, was stabbed in the abdomen? ? And it clarified so much of the hate online that this movie has gotten for me. Because if these guys whose whole thing is deep diving into the details of movies don't know something that no woman who saw that movie will ever forget, then how will the rest of the men watching this movie have a chance of picking it up? Like, no woman went into the theater to watch that movie and didn't remember that it was forced hysterectomy in the Red Room.
Yeah.
no woman is walking out of there like, gee, I don't know why she couldn't have children. Maybe she was stabbed in the abdomen once. Like, that's a traumatic thing
Yeah.
that you will remember. If they had said Steve had to be castrated in order to be Captain America, no man would ever forget that information.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, I don't think many women would forget that information just because socially we're brought up to remember that sort of trauma. That's neither here nor there, though. But I think that this movie expected you to remember everything about the character, even though she was given, like, all the information we have about her is in little sidelines from, like, down scenes in the other movies.
Yeah.
Which I remembered because I like the character, and because things like forced hysterectomy aren't things that most people will forget hearing about. But I think a lot of people just didn't remember the relevant information.
Yeah. No, I could see that. And I think another thing to that, though, is, coming from a guy's perspective, though I remembered it, and that's an important character detail to me for her.
Uh-huh.
Guys are kind of dumb with that kind of stuff, and we don't understand the importance of it.
Right.
And so,
which is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm a woman who doesn't want children. So, like, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Take it all out, whatever. But the concept of that happening to somebody forced is horrifying.
Yeah. No, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. No, the whole concept of the Red Room is just pure boogeyman. It's so creepy and scary.
Well, and the opening of the movie, like, I don't know about you. You grew up in a similar setting to me, I feel. We both grew up in the early 90s in a sort of small town America setting. Mm-hmm. And the picture they painted of where she had those 3 years in her undercover thing as a kid was so exactly my childhood.
Yeah.
And it really, like, heightened the whole, like, fear of, like, kidnapping, human trafficking, all of that was going on, because that's the scenario you're seeing happen there. Like, to not mince words, these girls were being sold into a trafficking situation. That is what the Red Room is.
Yeah.
So I thought that was powerfully done. No, disturbingly done.
The opening 10-15 minutes of, like, that establishing thing with the family, but then the credit scene at the beginning, just with the 90s style grainy footage of the news reports and the found footage of, the child trafficking and, like, the abductions and the, like, the splitting of families and stuff like that. It's just like, it was absolutely gut-wrenching.
Yeah, the whole movie did a good job of building. I mean, this was one of the big boogeymen of 90s childhoods, like, you're going to be kidnapped and sold into human trafficking. It was not something you could go through your childhood without hearing.
Oh, yeah.
And it did, like, this movie did a good job of that being the literal background of the character, but then also, like, empowering her, not through that necessarily, but giving her power to overcome that. Well, but it certainly did make me conscious of the fact that I had to walk to my car alone in the lot behind the theater when the movie got out.
Right. It definitely, like, initiated that sense of paranoia, for sure. Well, and I think there was that very powerful moment too towards the end, the beginning of the third act, when Rachel Weisz's character, Melina, the mother, just flat out asks, "How did you keep your heart?"
Right. And
it's like, and of course she says what Melina said to her as a child in her childhood, of, pain is, what makes you stronger. And I don't know, just that correlation of though she realized her childhood was a lie and that it projected her into a trajectory of pain and misery and trafficking and, you know, just the Red
Yeah.
Room itself, she was able to use that pain to guard herself, to guard her heart, essentially, till
Right.
she could get out. And it just, like I was saying earlier, it just made me love the character
Right.
of Black Widow so much more. Ugh.
Yep. Just in time.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, I don't. I'm so confused why they. Like, I am grateful they made this movie,
Yeah, totally.
but I'm so confused why they did it now.
Right.
This, and I know, quote unquote, moviegoers weren't ready for a female lead superhero movie back in 2016, but
Which is like the easiest coded way to say female moneybags movie producers weren't ready to trust audiences with a female driven superhero movie.
exactly. And it's just like, I don't know, it would have been perfect to come out in 2016, 2017, after Civil War, before Infinity War. I think that would have just, I don't know, I don't know what it would have been the same movie or not, but
yeah, I do kind of get it. You got Civil War was a heavy movie.
yeah.
It was heavy. And then going straight from that into the next release being this movie, which I think, I mean, as much as I wish it had come out sooner, I think benefited from the hopefulness of the end of Endgame. So, like, having it go from Civil War, heavy downer, Black Widow, kind of a heavy movie, Infinity War, mass parasocial trauma event for the whole Marvel watching world. Like, it's all a lot of heavy right in a row.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
I mean, I'm just glad we got it at some point. It would have been easy for them to be like, we killed the character already. We'll try again with the next one.
Yeah. You know what this felt like to me? It felt like Captain America 4.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, I'm looking at Phase 3. This would have been perfect for Phase 3.
Yeah.
So Phase 3 started with Civil War in 2016, and then Doctor Strange was after that.
Okay. Yeah, if they put it somewhere in the mix between.
And then after Doctor Strange was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and then Homecoming.
Okay,
and so if
so
they
would have been easily peppered somewhere in there.
Yeah, if they would have done it between like Guardians and Spider-Man, two very upbeat ones, and then it would have been Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, then Infinity War.
Yeah.
So I think
that could have totally worked.
If they would have just slipped it between Guardians and Spider-Man, I think it would have fit perfectly. But then again, like, I don't know if we would have gotten the same story. Though this story does, quote unquote, doesn't, affect the main plot line of the overarching Marvel story too much.
Right.
Though it does have massive implications with, the sleeper cell widows around the world for future phases. But, like, as for affecting Infinity War, it just tells you how she got a Quinjet and how she got a vest, which was an absolutely hilarious and adorable scene. But
very precious.
But, like, this movie, I feel, was very much affected by the last few years of what's going on in the world. Like,
yeah, I agree.
And I don't think it would have been the same movie if it was made back in 2016 or 2017,
Yeah.
I mean, the last 4 years have been fucking nuts. And not in a good way.
Nope.
And I think this movie kind of reflected that.
Yeah.
In a very like pure but also classy way. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard for exactly that reason to reflect on what ifs.
right.
Who knows? Who knows what would happen if any of these movies had been released at a different time?
Yeah. Ugh.
It's impossible, especially because they are all so much a part of the zeitgeist and in a way themselves color how we are perceiving the events we're living through.
Yeah. Oh, totally off topic, but totally on topic.
Right?
You asked me before I watched it to
Yes.
check for its passing or failing of the Bechdel test.
Yes, I was pretty sure it passed, but couldn't be positive because I wasn't watching specifically for it.
I was, because
Good.
you asked me.
Thank you.
It 100% passes the Bechdel test.
Yeah, I suspected. That's good. It would have been really upsetting if it hadn't, frankly.
Yeah, no, it's very good. It surpasses the guidelines for the Bechdel test significantly.
The Bechdel test, if you don't know, is two named female characters in a movie who have a conversation with each other for, I think it's longer than a minute, is the stricter guideline about something other than a man.
Yep.
And it is a shockingly difficult test for a movie to pass.
Yeah. Now,
it's getting better. A lot of things are getting better about it, but
yes,
it's one of those things where if you start to pay attention to it, you can get very sad very fast.
Yeah. I found a article that just had a infograph of movies that pass and fail it.
Yeah.
And it's significant how many movies fail it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'll see if I can find that infograph so that we can post it on the Patreon.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I would tell you the name of the graphic novel artist / writer that came up with the test and what the name of that was, but I have sick brain and it's just not there right now. It is the same woman who wrote the graphic novel that Fun Home the Musical was based on. So
hey, there's that.
I'll look it up and put it on the Patreon for you guys when my brain is settled.
Sounds good. But yeah, I mean it passes it, I think, with flying colors. And
good.
The times that their two named females are talking about a man is usually plotting to kill the main villain. So
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't there's a thing now, to be fair, this movie is getting good buzz. It's a very, very vocal minority of people who are shitting on it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But in that very vocal minority of people, one of the biggest complaints is that quote, the main villain is so bad, how could they do that to Taskmaster? And I don't think that they're realizing that Taskmaster isn't the villain of this movie.
Yeah.
Taskmaster's a villain in most of this movie, but not the main villain of the movie, even remotely.
So,
nor is she ever painted to be.
So I think what people are upset about with Taskmaster is that it is a complete rewrite of the character.
Yeah.
In the comics, it is a guy, and he has full agency over himself, and the chip just allows him to mimic anything that the program sees.
Sure.
And his name's like Antonio Tony Masters or something like that. Something comic book.
Do they use the name Taskmaster for the character in the movie at all?
Yes. Well, I don't know if they're called Taskmaster. When shit goes down and yes, babe?
Why is that Lori in here?
We're recording right now. She's sick.
I'm sick, I'm dying.
Yeah, I'll take care of the dishes after I'm done recording. I love you, babe. It's okay, babe. So when shit goes down, when Yelena first like gets the red mist, which remind me,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have something to say about that later.
Great.
Gets blasted in her face and it breaks the mind control, and she takes her tracking chip off. One of the other widows says, Yelena's gone rogue. Initiate the Taskmaster protocol.
Gotcha.
So
Really sort of referred to as a part of a protocol because the character is credited as Antonia.
yes,
The character is never credited as Taskmaster, so it's possible that they are not actually going to consider the character Taskmaster in the MCU.
correct.
That they're going to play some bullshit about, like, this was test one, but this guy was waiting in the wings the whole time, derivative of that technology, or something like that.
Or this guy was the inventor of the technology, and now
Right,
so
sure.
this I liked what they did with this character though. With
Oh,
Antonia.
me too. I thought it was effective.
And the fact that she is now going to be a gray good guy,
Right.
possibly with Melina
Sure.
and the Crimson Crusader, Crimson Dynamo, which is not the right name for him, but
Yes.
and then the rogue widows.
Right.
Like, that's going to be an interesting dynamic, but I'm
Yeah.
excited for the future of that character, because that was a badass character.
Yeah.
I really liked the quote unquote Taskmaster rendition in this movie.
Yeah. I wasn't bothered. I mean, like I said, I haven't read a lot of the comics in this vein of Marvel, the more
Mhm.
espionage-sided comics.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed what they did with that character in the movie. It worked with the plot well.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have made much sense without the extra tie-ins that they added to the character.
Well, and like in the comic books, the Taskmaster has nothing to do with I almost said Scarlet Witch. Black Widow.
Sure.
Has
Okay.
literally nothing to do with Black Widow. He's an Avengers level
Hmm. That
villain.
makes sense. I don't read any team books.
Yeah, he's an Avengers level villain because he can match all the Avengers. Like, if he fights one, he can
Sure.
match them and equate them, essentially.
Right.
And so he never, like, he'll fight Black Widow, but it's usually a team comic that he's in. And so
Right.
the way that they changed the story, changed the origin to make it directly affected and directly connected to Black Widow, I thought was brilliant. And it
Sure.
it fit, like, there's things that happen in the movies that make sense but don't necessarily fit.
Right.
Like the thing that always comes to mind is Killian. No, I always think Killian Murphy. No, the dude in Iron Man 3 that. So there's the fake Mandarin played by Ben Kingsley, and then the other dude that's the real villain.
It's been so long, I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Let me see.
But like his character makes it, like, it fits in the story, but it doesn't make sense where he's like, I'm the real Mandarin, where he's not.
Sure.
And we
Right.
can prove it now because there's a a Shang-Chi movie coming out with the real Mandarin in it, so
Right.
it worked for the story at the time, but it doesn't make sense with the Marvel canon. Where
Right.
with Taskmaster in this one, it works with the story and it makes sense for the overarching story that they're making, So I don't know. It worked for me. I found no issues with how they treated Taskmaster in this movie.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching it. I it was another one of those, like, when I saw Wonder Woman, I cried. Not because there was anything remotely sad about that movie, but because you just don't get a lot of those, like, this is made for me moments when you are a female comic book movie fan. Which is not to say that I don't love all the other movies, but they're not made for me in a lot of instances.
Mm-hmm.
So when you find one that is clearly like made for me, this was made assuming the knowledge that I have based on my place in society and my upbringing in that, it stands out. So I definitely cried in this one for similar reasons. Because it just felt like a movie that was made for me as a female movie fan,
Yeah.
which is sadly like kind of rare.
Yeah. No, totally.
So I enjoyed that about it immensely. And it was also just a good story. I liked that it filled in more background on Black Widow. I liked that it gave her a bigger family in the universe
Mm-hmm.
with more ways to play off of in the future.
It makes that scene in Endgame a lot more bitter, though. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, she does actually have a family. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Speaking on that, though, the end credit scene,
Hmm.
that has me super hyped for two very different but similar reasons.
Uh-huh.
One, they are very clearly building the Dark Avengers.
Yeah.
So they've got U.S. Agent from the Falcon and Winter Soldier series.
Uh-huh.
They now have Yelena Belova, which I can never remember her name in the comic books, but she's essentially the counter to Black Widow. She takes on the moniker of Black Widow for a while, but
Sure.
you know, in the MCU, there's a bunch of Black Widows now, I guess. I guess they're called Widows. So,
Right.
like, Natasha Romanoff is is the Black Widow, but I don't know. But in the comic book, Yelena's taken on the mantle, but
Yeah.
she's also been the counter to Natasha as well in the Dark Avengers. And then in the Shang-Chi trailer, there's Abomination, which he is part of the Dark Avengers. And so it's like, we're literally building the Dark Avengers, and that is insane. And it's really cool seeing it slowly build through this Disney Plus series and now the movies. And like,
Sure.
what's really tripping me out is they're doing it. The MCU is doing it. Like,
They've seen what they can get away with now.
but like,
They've seen that they can successfully tell a story over a decade and people will show up for it. So
Well,
why
yeah.
not do more?
but like, at first I was really hesitant about the Disney Plus series and how they were
Yeah.
going to fit into the world. Like, it made sense how, you know, Falcon and Winter Soldier were going to fit because they're staples in the movies. Same
Sure.
with Wanda and Vision, you know. Loki, though I'm loving it, and we might have something to say more about it later, it could also just be its own standalone thing. I
Sure.
know it's not because of what Kevin Feige said, but it could be. And
Sure.
but there's been after credit scenes in some of them where it's like, oh, that relates directly to a movie. Cool. This after credit scene for Black Widow, which is a theater release movie,
Yep.
is leading into a Disney Plus series.
Yep.
The Hawkeye and series. And I think it's now finally like solidified for me. Like, okay, the MCU just got way bigger
Yeah.
with
Well,
not
they've
just
been
the
like
movies, but
flirting
the
with
shows.
the idea. They've been flirting with the idea for a while. They pulled Coulson up from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He was a television casting before he was in the films, but that series was never pulled in as canon. just the one character.
Coulson was in the movies before the series.
I think he was in the series before the movies.
No.
As that casting.
He was Agent Coulson in Iron Man 1. So.
Well, one of the characters was in the series before the movies.
Gotcha. I'd have
and I don't remember which one it was.
It's one of them.
Because I have cold brain. But they have done that before.
Yeah. But
they just haven't put the actual series in.
Yeah,
just the character.
I think the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a test run. And they found out what they needed to do and what they needed to change. And now they're sprinting with it. And I think the biggest thing that they learned was that they can't do a long form TV series.
Sure.
It's got to be short form, miniseries style, episodic shows. And God, it's working.
I just wish they'd kept Agent Carter going another season to wrap up their loose ends, because that was such a good show, and they just did it so dirty with how they just cut it off.
Yeah.
It just got canceled. It didn't even get a conclusion.
Could you imagine if Agent Carter had made it through till 2017, 2018, and the season finale of the final season had Steve Rogers come back?
Well, it would have been a different Peggy than the one in the series.
That's true. You're right. Still would have been cool, though.
Yeah, no, it would have been super cool. I cry every time I hear that song still. Because that was everything I wanted. I was a big Peggy Carter fan. I watched the series like crazy.
Yeah.
It was just the perfect ending to that movie.
It really was.
Good.
So good.
Man.
Well, and that's what gives me hope for the next phase, you know? Kevin Feige knows what he's doing, and he's putting people in charge that know what they're doing.
Right.
I haven't watched anything by Kate Shortland, the director.
Yeah.
But now I kind of have to because I want to know what else she's done, because this was superbly directed.
Yeah.
It had that perfect mix of drama and comedy and action that there was never a moment where I was bored. I was being entertained either intellectually or action monkey brain. And
right.
There was
the action in this was fun too.
It was. And it was elegantly edited between the different aspects of it. And it had the MCU insanity of skydiving through debris to,
right,
and fighting mid debris. But it also had the quiet moments of, just Black Widow and her sister driving in a car talking about how much they love how many pockets this vest has.
Right.
It felt so real and fantastical at the same time.
Yeah.
Such a good movie. Marvel's, I can't wait for the next movie to come out. Which I think is...
It'll be real soon.
Is it Shang-Chi that's next, or is it Eternals? I think it's Shang-Chi.
I've seen trailers for that, and I haven't seen Eternals trailers in the wild yet, so that stands to reason.
Yeah, let me double check it real quick. I think we're right. Oh, that's not helpful at all. I clicked a link. And it's here's a list of the Marvel movies that are coming out in 2021. And literally the first thing I read is, these movies are not in any particular order. It's that's why I clicked on this. Okay, so September 3rd, Shang-Chi comes out. And then November 5th, Eternals. And then December 17th, Spider-Man.
Dang.
And
Busy fall.
And apparently, late 2021 or possible 2022, we're going to be getting the Hawkeye series and Miss Marvel. So, and then, then March comes around next year, we get Doctor Strange. Oh my God.
Dang.
Then May, we get Thor, Love and Thunder. July of next year, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. November 11th, The Marvels. And then late 2022, we get the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I'm so excited for that.
Oh, God. Horrifying.
Yeah, we are back in the bullshit, and I'm so excited. It's going to be great.
Yep.
All right, so do you have any other thoughts for Black Widow?
No, not really. I really liked what's his name, the guy that was getting her all the stuff.
Oh yeah,
he was a fun character.
What was his name? Mason.
Yeah, he was fun.
I don't know how to say his name without being horribly insensitive.
Okay.
Well, his first name's O.T., so it's like O-T.
Okay.
But his last name is Fagbenle. Is it French? So like Fagbenle? Fagbenle.
I don't have any idea.
I don't want to say it with a hard G. So, but yeah, I loved his character.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that. Huh. Was born in London, raised there in Spain and Nigeria, but that doesn't give me any hints as to how his name might be pronounced.
Yeah.
But he was a fun character. However, his name is said, and I liked it.
Yeah. Well,
it's nice to have a foil of just a purely helpful male character.
Yeah, not trying to get anything out of it, just doing his job, just trying to be friendly.
Well-intended.
Yeah.
Competent. Male. Important.
I just love see, look what I can do when you give me time and money. So good. I think the final thing that I wanted to say is, one, David Harbour is a national treasure.
Yeah.
And two, I will always and forever have a crush on Rachel Weisz. She was phenomenal in this as Melina, as just this cold but caring mother figure. Like, just the scene is at the very end where they finally reunite after everything's crumbled down, and Black Widow goes, "Oh, you guys are all right," and she looks her in the eye and goes, "Well, I am clearly injured." It's just like, I just loved how cold and calculating she was, but you could tell she cared about her quote unquote daughters, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So good. And yeah, this was a good movie. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. And if you have, but want to do a rewatch of the entire cinematic universe, I would highly suggest slipping this one in between Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man Homecoming. Or Far From Home. Homecoming.
I would put it right after Civil War.
Really?
I just wish it had been released between two lighthearted ones.
Gotcha. But yeah, I mean, this fits perfectly. Sans the post-credit scene.
Yeah. But that's fine.
But yeah.
As long as you've seen them all. I guess the question is, though, if we're doing this big MCU rewatch, which I plan on doing at some point, where do we put the series in? You may remember that I did a similar watching of all of Star Wars and its extended content chronologic in universe last year. And that was kind of a doozy to figure out. There are some shows that you had to watch one season, then a movie, then another season, then
Yeah.
2 movies a show, and then another It's like, feel like it's going to get into some shit with this one the same way.
Yeah. So far the series have been very right after Endgame.
Yeah, that's true. They've been pretty consistent
Luckily,
so far.
because all 3 of them.
Although you'd watch Loki. I guess you'd watch Loki. It would depend on where you want to watch. Do you want to pick Loki up from Loki's perspective or from your perspective as the audience? Because you could watch Loki in 2 places. You could watch Loki right after the first Avengers movie or right after Endgame.
So I have a feeling. Note, we are recording this before the final episode of Loki.
The day before.
The day before. But I have a feeling the final episode is going to turn the entire MCU on its head.
Great.
And
I'm excited.
I think that watching it in order of after the first Avengers would not be beneficial.
We'll see. We'll find out tomorrow where it all goes.
Yep. I am so excited for that. Also, we should probably talk about what we're going to be talking about next, huh?
Probably. Can you guess?
It's Loki.
It's Loki. Our next episode in 2 weeks' time will be on the first season of Loki on Disney Plus. 6 episodes. You can totally catch up in 2 weeks if you're motivated.
Honestly,
Be ready.
it's worth the watch if you haven't watched it. It's probably my favorite Marvel thing right now. Black Widow was phenomenal, and the fact that I got to see it in a theater with other people around me also really ranked it up there really high for me in my Marvel experiences. But if we're just going off of pure Marvel mythos and story and character building, I think right now Loki is actually encroaching the top spot for me.
See, I'll have to wait till it's all done for me to even think of it that way.
Really? Okay, that's fair.
It's not a complete story yet.
That's fair. I've always felt that as much as I've loved Loki, I felt like they've really underutilized him as a character. And this is fixing all of that for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm just, as it's been going along and they've been doing these little character details that have just really shifted him.
Yeah.
But, I don't want to get too deep into it because, that's our next episode. But it's depending on how this last episode goes, this might be...
Come back to hear the rest of Ian's thoughts on Loki.
It might be in my top 3. So,
nice.
We'll find out. As of right now, episode 6 has not released, so I can't pass judgment just yet. So, come back when we do that in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Do we want to thank our patrons?
We do. Jenny, Jake, Pam, and Graham.
Thank you guys so much for supporting us. We couldn't do this without you. And if any of our listeners also want to support us on Patreon, you can come visit us at patreon.com/casualcinephilia. We post a lot of stuff up on there for free. You don't have to be a patron to see a lot of the stuff we post, but we also do have some smaller things called the small stuff on there that our patrons can listen to. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you over there.
Yep.
And with that, this has been... Wow.
Bye.
Way to jump the gun. I've got an outro stinger. Let me say my outro stinger. Man, I'm tired. It's been ridiculous.
You're tired.
Well, I couldn't imagine being sick.
I've been experiencing like a 2-week-long cold that was condensed into 3 days.
Ugh.
I swear to God, I've experienced the same amount of phlegm and symptoms of a 2-week cold just in 3 days.
That's so
I feel
gross.
like on the upswing now, but have been dead.
Well, I am so glad that I didn't let you into my house.
I did not give you the opportunity, to be fair. I told you we would be recording remotely.
Oh, man. Well, way to take away my agency. Anyways.
I do it again every time.
This has been another episode of Casual Cinephilia. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Music by Kevin MacLeod, Quirky Dog, and Vicious. Licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. You can find his music at incompetech.com. I'll take away your agency anytime, any day.
Any day.